right, we're going to use A through J in order to graph this quadratic. So the first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and find our A. A is -1. It's the coefficient of the x squared. B is 4. It's the coefficient of the x. C is 5. B, we are going to look at the x squared coefficient. If it is positive, our quadratic opens up, and if it is negative, our quadratic opens down. So this quadratic is going to open down. If the parabola opens down, that means that we have a maximum point. Now let's go ahead and find our vertex. So in order to find the vertex, we're going to use -b. This is what x is going to equal. -b divided by 2a. So -1 times 4 divided by 2 times -1. This is going to give us -4 divided by -2, which is going to give us 2. So now I know 2 is what my x value is. All right, so let's make a little bit more room here, and we'll get the e back in a minute. Now we're going to find our y. So y is equal to -x squared plus 4x plus 5. So you're going to notice that y is equal to the exact equation that we started with, because we can actually write this equation as equaling 0. All right, so now let's go ahead and solve. And we have -1 times 2 squared plus 4 times 2 plus 5. So -1 times 4 plus 8 plus 5. -4 plus 8 plus 5 will give you 4 plus 5, which gives you 9. All right, so now we have our vertex. Once we have our vertex, we also have our axis of symmetry. So our axis of symmetry is going to be x equals 2. This value will always be the same for our axis of symmetry. All right, so now we're going to come over here and we're going to find our x-intercepts. In order to find our x-intercepts, we're going to use our quadratic formula. Now we're using our quadratic formula because we also have to identify our discriminant. So x is equal to -1 times b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to -1. Our b value is 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times -1 times 5, all divided by 2 times -1. X is equal to -4 plus or minus the square root of 16 plus 20 all over -2. X is equal to -4 plus or minus the square root of 36 divided by -2. Now here is where we can identify the discriminant value is 36 because it is positive 36. That means I'm going to have two solutions, and it means I'm going to have two x-intercepts. So two solutions and two x-intercepts. Let's write that the same way we wrote it before. Two solutions and two x-intercepts. Okay, that's good for me to know for graphing. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and come up here. We need to finish solving to find out what those x-intercepts are. So we're going to have x is equal to -4 plus or minus. The square root of 36 is 6. And now we're going to go ahead and break those down. -4 plus 6 divided by -2, and -4 minus 6 divided by -2. So we're going to have 2 divided by -2, which is going to give us -1. We're going to have -10 divided by -2, which is going to give us -5. So we'll come back up here and fill in our x-intercepts are -1, 0, and 5, 0. We now know our roots because we use our same values for our x-intercepts, so -1, 5. And now for our domain. So domain is asking us, what can x equal? So we're going to write it as -infinity. We're going to put x in between, positive infinity, and -infinity. That's going to be our way to designate that it's all real numbers. But now what we're doing is translating it into terms of infinity and -infinity. Our that was our domain. Oh my. I forgot to do your y-intercept. So for my y-intercept, x is 0. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in, and it's going to be y is equal to -x squared plus 4x plus 5. So y is equal to -1 times 0 squared plus 4 times 0 plus 5. So that's going to give me 0. Y is equal to 0. Nope, sorry, y is equal to 5. So my y-intercept is going to be 0, 5. And my range, and we're going to talk a little bit about the range in a minute, is all the values of y such that y is less than 9. And I'm going to show you how we figure that out by looking at the graph. So let's go over to the graph. And the first thing that we're going to graph is going to be our vertex. So our vertex is at 2, 9. That's the first thing that we're going to graph. The second thing that we're going to graph is going to be our axis of symmetry. And you'll notice at the axis of symmetry, every single point on this x value of 2. So this is 2, 0, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4. That's why our axis of symmetry is the line where x equals 2. So our first thing to graph is our vertex. The second thing to graph is our x-axis, or our axis of symmetry. The next thing that we're going to graph is going to be our x and y intercepts. So we're going to go to -1, 0, and we're going to go to 5, 0. Now, I want you to notice that the axis of symmetry helps us to double check that we have our x-intercepts in the right place. If I stand on the axis of symmetry and go 1, 2, 3 to the right, I hit my first x-intercept. If I stand on the axis of symmetry and go 3 to the left, 1, 2, 3, I get my other x-intercept. Now I'm going to graph my y-intercept. My y-intercept is 0, 5. Now, in order to find my other point, I stand on my x-intercept and I count 1, 2 to the left. So I'm going to stand on my x-intercept and count 2 to the right. And that's going to give me my fifth point that I need. Now, I'm going to go ahead and draw my parabola in, noticing that it is opening down as we said. And you'll notice that this ordered pair here is 2, 9. If you think of the roller coaster, I'm riding the roller coaster up, and I get to the maximum point or the highest point of the parabola before I come back down. So my vertex 2, 9 is a maximum. It is the maximum point on the parabola. Now, how did we find the range on the parabola? Well, the range tells us something about y. And you'll notice that here the value of y is 9. Here the value of y is 5. Here the value of y is 0. And I don't have any values on this parabola where y is greater than 9, because that would be up in this area. Up here, this is the value, y is 10, y is 11. So I use this value in my range, just like I used this value for my axis of symmetry. So when I have found my vertex, I've found my axis of symmetry, and I've also found the number that's going to go in my range. So the range tells me that all the y's, because they're below the maximum, are going to be less than or equal to 9. And now you know how to graph using A through J and finding the discriminant.